of colonialism, naval power was the foremost symbol of strength. By mid-20th century, the two world wars shifted the center of gravity skyward, where air power emerged as a significant instrument influencing the tempo and reach of operations across theaters. And of course, Normandy landing made sure all three come together, which saw a massive coordinated air, sea, and of course the land invasion in 1944. So in our time, the form of warfare itself becomes so fluid that conflict is no longer bounded by the battlefields, is diffused, dispersed, and pervasive. And Russian General Valery Gerasimov observed that modern wars now follow a ratio of 4:1 for non-military to military actions. The essence of hybrid warfare which we are witnessing today. So when we talk about this strategic partnership, we are looking at long-term manufacturing and that guaranteed support. The issue will always remain that we may give the guaranteed support, but the requirement of that particular equipment may no longer exist after 5 to 7 years. So that also has to be understood by all of us. So yet, amid all these trends of warfare, one factor always remains constant. That is, land remains the currency of victory. Other domains operations may destroy or disrupt, but in Indian context, land domain looks at destruction, eviction, occupation and control. The outcomes that are physical, political and psychological. You have seen the negotiations in Ukraine and Gaza, which reinforce the importance of the same. So if wars keep changing in form, the next question is, how do nations or militaries translate evolving ideas into real war fighting capabilities? And as Clausewitz observed, everything in war is very simple, but the simplest thing is difficult. The actualization of warfighting capability is a complex and cumulative process, a continuum of conceptualization, experimentation, development, and acquisition, and it demands 3 T's: thought, technology, and tenacity. Let's take example of main battle tank. Conceived to restore mobility in static trench warfare, needed 2 decades of sustained design, experimentation, doctrinal evolution. Only then it emerged as the defining instruments of maneuver on land. Closer home, India's guided missile program flagship, the Agni missile system, reflects how a strategic idea matured into enduring capability. Envisioned in the 80s as a pillar of credible deterrence, it evolved through indigenous research, scientific rigor, and sustained national resolve into a family of long-range precision systems that safeguard India's strategic autonomy. So the history of warfare shows that while ideas may be conceived within the military, the realization extends far beyond it. An Honorable Prime Minister during the Combined Commanders Conference September 25 encapsulated this spirit when he gave the mantra of Jai, that is jointness, that integrates our effort, Atmanirbharta empowers our capability, and innovation transforms ideas into action. So what are the enduring essentials that make the mantra translate into credible warfare capabilities? I'll just list out 5 or 6 of them. And the first would be the intent, which is the catalyst of capability. So do we in India have it? The answer is yes. In abundance. Our early nuclear program, space program, missile program, the recent chip manufacturing initiative are all evidences of strong intent. In the defense budget for financial year 25-26, rupees 1.8 lakh crore, that's approximately 26%, is allocated to capital outlay. These investments reflect not just numbers, but a national intent to stimulate and catalyze the growth of a cross-domain Atmanirbharta ecosystem. So the intent must also be cognitive with longevity. It means whatever intent we have promulgated, it should have a longevity like we have our decade of transformation 2032. And be ready to accept change, make new structures, and overcome preconceptions. The second is the ecosystem. The enabler of efficiency. If intent sets the direction, is the ecosystem that delivers the outcome. An ecosystem in the context of capability development is the framework of reforms that turn strategic intent into executable strength. The year of reforms 2025, launched by the Honorable Raksha Mantri, makes a decisive step towards aligning defense process with the national vision of Atmanirbharta. Under its aegis, the defense acquisition procedure, that is DAP 2020, is being comprehensively revised. And the biggest advantage is that at this point of time, we are ready to change. Since it is part of the year of reforms, every suggestion which is there is a welcome change. It is being discussed and it is being incorporated. The new Defense Procurement Manual, DPM 2025, has already been released, and it is aimed at simplifying and accelerating acquisition procedures while ensuring ease of doing business. And to promulgate and kind of enlighten everyone, there is a seminar also planned in due future where the financial advisors, the industry, academia, and everybody gets to know that how these two major documents are going to make the change. The third would be the research and development. The engine of evolution, if the ecosystem defines the environment, R&D outlines its edges. Since IDEX and everything would have already been discussed, I'll not cover that. I'll just say that industry must invest in emerging technologies, AI, cyber quantum, unmanned autonomous system, space and advanced materials. Not only to meet future operational needs, but also to power India's manufacturing growth and defense exports. The proof is visible in indigenous systems like the Akash AD, ATAC guns and light tank Zorawar. And what we are looking at, a full automation and manned-unmanned teams, because that's what is the future. The manpower will remain constant, but the efficiency of the same manpower with the exploitation of the equipment has to go 1.5 to 2 times. And that is what we are expecting from the industry to help us out, other than the exact hardware. However, we need to now move from experimentation to enterprise scale innovation, and the time is actually running short. The private sector in pharma and automobiles are set to invest nearly 10,000 crore annually in R&D, but the defense R&D lags at approximately 100 to 200 crores only. Therefore, a gap that must close in if India is to design and deliver its own cutting-edge defense capability. Fourthly, the strategic partnerships. The bridge of opportunity. While R&D builds what we can create, strategic partnership expand what we can access. In a world of complex threats, no nation stands secure alone. Shared defense innovation is the strongest shield. Certain technologies will never come to us on a platter. Need is to collaborate under terms of shared benefits and local control. The shining examples are BrahMos and K9 Vajra. What is more important for any R&D's effort is from 0 to 1. Once it becomes from 0 to 1, from 1 to 100, it becomes that much easier, because then it requires replication, modification and upgradation. So that 0 to 1 is something we need to focus. If not, then we need to get it from somewhere outside. Fifthly, military-civil fusion. The troika of transformation. If strategic partnership reflects collaboration abroad, military-civil fusion must anchor it at home. I've often emphasized and re-emphasized it here again. There's the troika of academia, industry and the military that must achieve deep cross-domain synergy. While academia innovates, the industry must incubate and the military must imbibe these innovations. We in the army have shared our innovations and are constantly reaching out, sharing concepts, outreaching through our coordination agencies, onboarding ourselves in national technology missions, making equipment and ranges available to the industry, funding startups. We are doing a lot and we'll be happy to do more. And finally, the passion. Between imagination and implementation lies the passion, the force that gives life to ideas. A mission mode, no rest till we reach approach, will be needed for maybe next 10 to 15 years. Only then we'll be able to put in place a resident architecture which will enable us to think ahead, with pioneering concepts, and also have the means to test and implement them. So what are we doing about it? If I can just summarize certain issues or the initiatives, for transforming vision into value, we have declared Decade of Transformation. We have 5 pillars, that is force restructure, modernization, jointness and integration, system process functions, and of course the HR upgrade, that the human resource upgrade, are being concurrently provided impetus or nudge as applicable. If I can say that the academia and industry playing a major role in it. Ensuring synergized research and development with Troika, whether it's a ASMI weapon or drone manufacturing. Our 2.5 front challenge and post-op Sindoor empowerment in terms of financial empowerment which we have got is giving us more flexibility for spiral development and induction. Same with spiral evolution of the new structures. Many times people used to say that, what do you want, tell us. Now we have created this structure and we are looking for the equipment, but the equipment will take its own time. So we are going in for phase 1, phase 2, but we have created this structure so that the industry is aware that what is the overall requirement, the academia is aware that what is the overall research and development requirement. We've created organizations like Rudra, Shaktiman, Divyastra, Bhairav, Ashni, and many more will follow. So what it means, it's already there in the media what it means, but the requirement of equipment is something which we need to jointly work out. Years of technology absorption, 24-25 allowed us to prepare human resource and develop ecosystem for technology upgrade. Capitalizing on this success, years of 26 and 27 are now being declared as years of networking and data centricity. And here again the academia and industry can play a major role. We are harnessing dual use technology and creating convergence by adapting or constantly modifying technology itself and the TTPs, that is techniques, tactics and procedures, and drone warfare is a live example to it. We are already associated in a big way with national technology missions of quantum, space, 6G, etc. for a very collaborative approach. So as a military, we are convinced that for us to succeed, it is imperative to help others. That is imperative to help others to succeed, as in a collaborative environment and whole of nation approach, 2 plus 2 must make it to 22. So in conclusion, the future of war fighting will not be defined by any single domain or doctrine, but by how decisively we convert ideas into enduring capabilities. Our journey from concept to capability is in truth a journey from dependence to dominance, from preparing for the future to possessing it. For all the leaders in this hall, including me, concepts inspire us, capabilities protect us. It is the leadership which ensures that one becomes the other. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Lots to unpack there from General Dwivedi's speech. We'll try to match up with what he said. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. General Dwivedi, Nitin Gokhale, and friends. You know, the world isn't seeing a third world war, but I think the world is at war. And what we are seeing is something that we've not seen in the 21st century. We've seen the largest conflict in the 21st century, which is going to enter its 5th year in 2026, the Russia-Ukraine war. And that's kind of redefined the way conflicts are fought. We were told that wars of attrition would be a thing of the past. The Russians have proved it otherwise. The Ukrainians proved that there are no pushovers. And then you have Israel and Hamas and Israel and Iran and Israel and the Houthis and Israel and so many other non-state actors. So this is like truly the age of conflict. It is the era of change. It is the revolution in military affairs. And what we are seeing right now with all of these capabilities, all of these wars, is an RMA of the kind that we last saw in 1991 with the Gulf War, when you saw the Tomahawk missiles hitting very precisely. That was the last RMA that we saw. And now we're seeing another RMA with hypersonic weapons, with AI, with autonomous weapon systems, and of course drones. And this is truly a path-breaking moment that we are living through. And at the same time, while we are talking about multi-domain operations, you heard General Dwivedi speak about multi-domain operations, and of course that how the Indian Army is going to absorb technology. It is the decade of transformation for the Indian Army. It is the year of technology absorption. And you know what struck me is that while he was speaking, my thoughts were out of the borders, because the Indian Armed Forces have launched one of their largest exercises in recent years. You have the overhang of Operation Sindoor. That's been on 6 months back. That operation continues. So I think the time to talk about this technology absorption is over, and now it is, we must go from concepts to reality. We must actually go to execution now. And I think, we are reached a point when the enemies at our doorstep. And in our case, in India's case, we have a very unique situation where we have the prospect of two nuclear armed countries at our doorsteps, and both are in a collusive relationship. So this two-front war that we spoke about in the past, we saw it very recently becoming one front. Right, so that is the kind of challenge that India is facing, and to reform in the face of this kind of challenge, where you have the forces on the one hand engaged in live combat, literally they are in ops mode all the time. To carry out reforms is going to be extremely difficult. Very few other countries have done the kind of transformation that we are attempting in a very short span of time. But I have with me a very esteemed group of panelists who are experts in their field, in AI, in drones, in ammunition manufacture, and they're going to lead us through this decade of transformation that General Dwivedi mentioned, what the Indian Armed Forces really need to do, what are the structures that we need to modify, how do we bring change in. And I'm going to start by asking Ashok ji. Mr. Ashok Atluri and me have been talking for many years, and he started talking about counter-drone systems before drones were the thing. I want to ask you this, Mr. Atluri, the fact that drones are the big thing, right? You're looking at the Russia-Ukraine war, where one estimate suggests that 80% of casualties on the battlefield have been caused by drones. When you look at the Indian drone ecosystem, what are the missing pieces that you see over here? And how can India become a drone superpower of the way that other countries have become? Russia and Ukraine are two countries which have possibly the largest expertise, the most expertise in drones. How do you see us becoming a drone superpower? What do we need to do?
I think the way we can become, in any field, forget about drones or anti-drones or, AI, is actually working very hard to implement very sincerely the Buy Indian IDDM route. In the sense, so for example, now emergency procurement has gone, they suddenly went Buy Indian, which should have been Buy Indian IDDM. So why this is a letdown in the sense that companies that have worked on developing the capabilities for many years have suddenly now they have to compete with foreign guys who somebody they come and do. So this capability is at risk today. So the way to really build superiority in any capability is identify those companies that have the capability and keep giving them orders. And don't try to second guess them every time, in the sense that how will they compete with, if you want not India best, you want these guys to be making world's best because you're fighting wars, not within India. So my worry is that there are companies, again, these capable companies are very rare, Sandeep. I mean, they are not available, very easily available. I mean, I would say maybe 100 or 120 of these companies are there in India at this point in time. They should be treated like national strategic assets. They should be nurtured, given order, and ensured. Because, a lot of people say, I'll give you money, do R&D. But R&D is actually some kind of a genetic thing. It's in the DNA of the company. If you want to give a trading company money and say, do R&D, I hear a lot of things where, people say that, we want to do R&D, but your government has to give money. In fact, when we proposed, make two, we said we don't want your money. We are willing to invest the money, but please give us guaranteed orders. So that was kind of a taken. Everybody was taken aback. Why is 100? Why will industry fund 100%? Because that is we can do the R&D, fund ourselves, but the paperwork involved from taking the money from the government is much more headache for us than actually making the product. So again, to your question, to have these capabilities, it should be IDDM companies, go whole hog, give them orders, and ensure that they have become not only the best in India, but the best in the world. Because this is again, there's a virtuous cycle. When you give to a R&D company some money, they do more R&D on that. They don't try to go and buy what a typical trader would do, spend or something. But this is what the most part is, that we have to identify these companies and treat them with respect, and and then keep giving them orders. Don't try to second guess them, get some competition from abroad. And sometimes this also happens that they say, listen, we have this very good technologies, we have 3 or 4 players in the world, but here we have some kind of resistance, even though it is there enshrined in the by Indian IDDM, there is a single vendor now. Come on, there will be a single vendor. If you want world best, there will be only one company. And you want 2 or 3 in India? No, that's not done. So I think that's my viewpoint.
So it's basically you're suggesting something like a mini Ratna category be created for chosen IDDM companies that have demonstrated excellence.
Yeah, so I don't know, mini Ratna, this kind of almost looks like that you're trying to capture or do a regulatory capture. But I'm thinking again, when we talk about regulatory capture, crony capitalism, that is, just you are trying to capture the, regulations and trying to do. But here, this is innovation proven, and these guys are exporting to the world. Come on, how much do we really need to prove till you start giving the?
So what you're saying is basically that the Indian government should do for the private sector, for the Indian private sector, what all the P5 countries have done for their private sector companies when they were in the path of.
No, actually, there used to be a fight, where we want to buy the best for India, and I would buy from a foreign source also. But the Israeli leader Netanyahu once famously said, if my industry has 60% capability, I'll buy from my industry. I will not buy the best one, because he knows that if I buy, they're going to reinvest and become #1 in the world. And that approach has created the capabilities.
I've heard a very interesting line from someone. I've heard a very good line on that from someone in the forces, where he said exactly what you said, that teda hai par mera hai. That is the line he's used for an Indian company. But Ashish, I want to come to you. And I met Ashish many years back at a coffee shop in Defense Colony, where he was trying to sell very advanced bulletproof jackets to the Indian Army. And this was a long time back, Ashish, what was it, 15 years back?
Yeah.
And he couldn't understand why the army didn't want to buy something that was so state-of-the-art. He was actually exporting it to foreign countries. I think you had a lot of foreign vendors before you had started selling it here. So, I mean, it is businessmen like Ashish, who just got very big contracts today from the government of India. He's executed a, $100 million order for personal protection gear.
Yeah.
One of the largest, I think,
Yes.
of all time, right? I mean, that basically tells you how far we have come from the past, where Indian businessmen were kept out, and today you're back in the system. But, just to borrow a line from political lexicon, Ashish, there's this double-engine sarkar that the government uses, political parties use for the. Here you have a double-engine sarkar as well. You have the PSUs, you have the private sector. Do you believe that the defense ministry is actually firing on both engines now, or do you still feel there is a lot of room for improvement when you're in the private sector and you're still being treated as an outsider?
See, there's always a scope for improvement. So you can always say, dil mange more. But the point is, it's high time we start collaborating with each other. It's high time PSUs and private industry collaborate with each other, because that's what will bring out the best from both. It's we are into ammunition manufacturing. Today we start reinventing the wheel, start recreating the facilities which exist already. It's a national wastage. It will take us more time to introduce the more precision ammunition. It will take us more time to come back to that level. Whereas if we today collaborate with the PSUs, the time to market will become much shorter. The armed forces will get the needed weapons much faster. And it's a win-win situation for even the PSU, because they would have a sustainable model where they are able to have us also as one of their customers for certain items, or collaborate with us and produce some things which they have not been able to. So it's high time we have to look at a collaborative approach. We have to look at a whole nation approach, where we say, yes, let's work together to create these setups.
Is it happening? I mean, has it happened? Because I'm fond of saying that I've been in Delhi for about 20 years now. I've covered the defense beat for that long, and Nitin Bhai will bear me out. I have seen more change in the last 5 years than I have seen in the previous 15 years. And the rate of change is incredible, right? And Do you see that same thing happening in the last 5 years? Is the
I-
government more responsive today?
Absolutely. I give a credit to the leadership at the political level, at the armed forces level. There's a sea change in the mindset. In fact, today morning itself, I won't name it, but we had a meeting where we were actually talking about this partnership itself. And there's a
Public-private partnership.
yes, and there is two years ago at the AMO India conference, I had first introduced this thought that let's look at it in this manner. And the then vice chief appreciated the fact, and we started discussions on this. And today we were actually sitting and talking, how do we create one? So it's no longer a thought process that should we create one or not, but it's now coming to a point with how do we create one?
Right.
So definitely there's a lot of change which has happened. It has taken time, but I think once we break a few stones here, things will start rolling.
Things will start rolling indeed. And I was reminded about this artificial intelligence surgeon. You're a AI evangelist yourself. And some time back, if you ask somebody here in Delhi what AI meant a few years back, they would say it meant Air India, right? So today we've come a distance now. We've seen these conflicts where AI has been very, very key, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, you're looking at autonomous weapon systems, and also in Israel, in the Israel-Hamas war, you saw targeting systems being used, AI targeting being used. Where are we on the AI absorption thing with the Indian military? We've seen great schemes being launched by the government. There is AI schemes launched as far back as 2019. Where are we on AI absorption into the Indian military, into the defense ministry?
Firstly, thank you very much for having me, and I just wanted to thank the Chief for some very insightful remarks. I do feel slightly uncomfortable basis what we've just heard representing a foreign OEM, but with that caveat, I will try and answer the question. I've been particularly encouraged, it must be said, over the last couple of years with how forward-thinking and how futuristic the thought process, the planning, the awareness has been obviously across the political leadership, but much more importantly at the level of all three service HQs. Shield AI is committed to an India-first approach to our international partnerships, which is why India is the only place that we've already executed a comprehensive transfer of technology to establish local production. And then our core AI product, HiveMind, again, is in the process of being localized. And the great news, and I think particularly encouraging news, has been the almost immediate pickup on the critical need for a unified battlefield intelligence or battlefield AI platform. And to answer your question directly, without again getting into specifics, all three of the Indian Armed Forces are very seriously and very maturely exploring the details necessary to be able to start to deploy true artificial intelligence on the battlefield. And that said, since you mentioned the impact of AI on the battlefields of Ukraine or Gaza, I would caution everyone to say we have not even seen the tip of the iceberg as far as the actual implementation of AI in battlefield systems is concerned. You're seeing a little bit of application at the level of kind of automated find, fix, track, detect, and then you're seeing a lot of application across sensor systems. But the deployment of true edge intelligence that generates effectively autonomous behaviors at the level of entire platforms. And since this discussion is meant to be about multi-domain application, I'll just call out across air, land, sea, and space. The real sort of transition that the world is now seeing, and again, we're at the beginning of it, is to move from remote piloted systems to truly autonomous systems. And then one of the key sub-questions within that is, where does the human on the loop or human in the loop process remain when you have truly autonomous systems? I'm very encouraged by the conversations that we've managed to have as SHIELD with government. It's obvious to me that this is an enormous moment, an enormous opportunity for India, because we faced historically for the last 75 years resource constraints, technical constraints, and a sense of the limits rather than the possibilities of what we're able to do as a nation. For the first time in this RMA, in this revolution in military affairs, it is software that is going to be key. It is going to be AI knowledge and understanding that's going to be key. And we're seeing hardware platforms moving categorically from large, exquisite $100 million, $200 million platforms in relatively small numbers to, again, because of AI, the ability to deploy enormous numbers of relatively inexpensive platforms. Both of these trends, one, the importance of software as a category, and two, the fact that we're moving towards relatively inexpensive platforms being deployed in large numbers, offers an enormous opportunity for India once again to sort of leapfrog generations in technology, as we've done with mobile telephony, as we've done with computing, and effectively become a global leader as far as this post-human, post-modern battlefield is concerned. We have the necessary ingredients, we have the necessary raw human talent and potential, and based on everything I've heard today and previously, I think government's policies are now becoming more than facilitative to make sure that the indigenous systems are supported and we attract the world's best to come and partner with India in order to help generate the self-reliance. The last comment that I'd make is Atmanirbharta, I don't think can be achieved through mere stubbornness to say the answer is to just focus on local producers. It can only be achieved and it can go from a mere ambition to a reality if we figure out how to attract the best globally to come and make India their hub, their partner. Thank you.
Right, right. Thanks. Interesting aspects there, Sarjan, and you're talking about the RMA, and I couldn't help but think that one of our finest weapon systems, the BrahMos, actually came as a result of the Gulf War 1991. It's a very interesting story because our scientists saw the Tomahawks being used there and said that we don't have anything like this. Let's go to the Russians and get, work a JV with them for the BrahMos, and that's how the BrahMos came, and we saw the devastating use of the BrahMos in Operation Sindoor. But Mr. Atluri, I was talking about, we're talking about multi-domain operations, of course, but coming back to drones, you've seen the way drones have completely revolutionized the battlefield. Again, coming back to the Russia-Ukraine war, where the Russians are firing them in the thousands now. It started in the tens, then it went to the hundreds, and now they're firing drones in the thousands. And when I look around, there's a lot of procurement of drones across the services. Everybody is buying drones. But I don't see the massive drone production lines that we see in the other countries like Russia, for instance. They have this massive production line in a place called Alabuga. The Chinese certainly have it. The Americans are looking at it, low-cost Shahed 136 type of drones. Do you see the need for standardizing this thing? While we are buying a lot of emergency procurements, short-term, because the forces need the capabilities today, is there a need for standardizing this onto one or more platforms where several industries can come in, exactly like the automobile revolution? You have a drone revolution, where you standardize on a couple of designs, multiple companies come in, and you produce them in bulk for the Indian services and also for export.
Yeah, I think, again, if you can really identify some vendors who you think are really doing incredible R&D, if you start placing the orders on them, either they create the manufacturing facility themselves, or they have tie-up with. We have a lot of manufacturing capability here. In fact, as Zen Technologies, we don't have much manufacturing capacity or capability with us. What we do is we develop prototype and do the engineering, and then we outsource it because there's a lot of manufacturing capacity. But when you talk about drones, or by the way, I'm into anti-drone systems more than drone, right. But counter-drone systems. But to your question, what is the capacity that we need is a full-fledged, multi-pronged war happening, yeah. And we are every day we are replacing that capacity. Right. So the government should actually go and say, listen, where is this capacity for me when a full-fledged war is going on? And and then they have to pay. Suppose somebody says, listen, my complete capacity is only 300,000 or something like that. They say, okay, here is the money for the 700,000, but you need a 1 million capacity. So it has to be done proactively by the government. That's the norm everywhere else. So yeah, but again, I think the point here is You know, whether it is AI or anything. And when you're talking about multi-domain factors, if I don't own the IP, how do I integrate it across the thing? If I don't, you know, we've seen pager, we've seen the Stuxnet, you know, I don't own the code, I don't know what material is there, I'm sitting duck. I mean, in the time of war, my product will stop working. So it's absolutely necessary that, you know, multi-domain, etc. Manufacturing capacity is one thing. I think government can really say, okay, this is the capacity, please build it, I'm going to do it. But actually, how do you ensure that deep inside the software, the algorithms will not work against me in a war? So that is very important, and that's again the IDDM concept was that indigenously designed, developed, when that happens, the armed forces actually go through your code. Is there anything hidden where they can harm us? And they see the electronic design, they look at the mechanical design, and only when they feel comfortable they allow us. So that's that's why it's a different ball game altogether. And you know, when IDDM is done, the manufacturing capacity is typically built. It can be achieved very easily.
Right, Ashish, you want to come in there? You're a drone manufacturer as
Yep.
well.
So I was just waiting for you to for that chance.
Right.
You know, so very recently we've gone through a very stringent drone evaluation procedure, and I can assure you that at least the procedure we went through, the way the Chinese components was checked, I don't think you can have anything Chinese inside after that kind of procedure going through. The way the drones were evaluated in the terrains with the EW capabilities, it was actually amazing to see that yes, that kind of evaluation is being done. Now that's what needs to be standardized. That's something which needs to be done across the domains to make sure that whatever is being bought goes through that kind of a trial procedure. And then what you also need to do is, I wouldn't completely agree with Ashok that you select companies and just you side with them. I would say do a 60% with who started supplying you, give them orders, harness their potential, support them. But 40% you need to start looking for new talent on the market. You need to make sure you look for new startups, new MSMEs. You never know when one MSME becomes, or when one startup becomes a unicorn.
You know, the Defense Ministry had something very similar a couple of years back, the Raksha Udyog Ratnas, RURs. But that fizzled out. I mean, was it because of the fear that they'll be creating monopolies in the private sector?
I think I agree with him in the sense that, you know, if you really keep harnessing these capabilities, and then you also keep some quantity for the, because we want competition to be there, but fair competition to be there. But the one thing we should be not really, again, this monopoly thing has been there forever. Right. And when Buy Indian IDDM was being introduced, a single vendor was put into that because the reasoning behind that was, listen, worldwide there are 3 or 4 manufacturers for the product. And how can we expect 3 manufacturers in India for that? It's the most foolish thing to say. So, the concept of in fact, what we should be thinking is, it's not monopoly, but can we create global leaders out of India? That they go and dominate. We are buying Microsoft, we are buying Apple, we are buying, but why not have our own Indian?
That will come in when you focus on Indian companies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you should actually embrace if somebody is coming with extraordinary technology, and if he's a monopoly, he's a global leader candidate. Please go after him and do that.
Sarjan, you want to come in on that?
If I could, just on 2 issues that I heard. So one, I actually am in wholehearted agreement on this issue of monopolies, right? So 2 points that I'd make within that. One, the nature of the defense business is such that by definition, your timelines are enormous. Your R&D cycles are long dated. And your typical principles of the free market, therefore, may not actually be correctly employed. You do have negative externalities, and you do need government intervention because you require long-term investment into R&D and at-scale manufacturing from the private sector. And the second element there that I'd mention is, of course, there's no resource exploitation going on, there's no capture of resources, etc. So I don't think that's a concern. But the thing that I think would really help is just an environment of predictability. As far as, for example, in this 2025 moment, I think the Indian Armed Forces do need to come up with a standardized taxonomy of unmanned systems that the Army will require or the Armed Forces will require over the next decade, across size, weight, power, mission context categories. Publish that, make it clear to the Indian private sector, here's what we're looking at over the next decade, here's how we need capabilities to evolve and develop over time, And we need delivered capabilities at 40%, 60%, 80%, and eventually 100% over the next decade. That's all fine. But I think that the private sector would really benefit from predictability, as opposed to discovering that there's been scope creep or requirements creep by the time that first phase of R&D has been completed. Those are the 2 points that I wanted to make.
Right, absolutely. And I'm afraid we're completely out of time. We just got about 5 minutes. I want to end this by asking all of you one suggestion from each of you on what we need to do to actually make multi-domain operations a reality, to go from concept to execution. Really, one suggestion from all of you. Mr. Atluri, beginning with you.
Yeah. I think, focus on, identify companies with proven track record in R&D, and then if they have specific capabilities, start giving them orders with a timeline to evolve, clear-cut multiple timeline. And again, the IP ownership should be absolutely Indian controlled. There should not be something across domains, and and facilitate interaction between them. I think that is the fastest way, not only to become self-sufficient, but also become a global leader in that. Right. But yeah, I think that should be.
Identify private sector champions.
Yes, and just give them orders, especially for products that they have already proven. Right. We don't create be a buy Indian and start getting other guys. And if I'm a foreign guy, I wouldn't want India to have capability because they're my biggest market. Right. I would underquote at any price. I'll take the order because I want to kill that capability. So these are regular playbook things. But but still we are I think we're getting trapped in that.
Absolutely. Ashish, you want to come in on one suggestion for the government of India, Defense Minister?
Identify technologies. Technologies are going to be the most potent weapon in any war of tomorrow. Identify the technologies, have test companies with a smaller order. They're good. Work with them for larger orders while you look for next generation technology. So you have to progress with time. You've gone through EP, tested them with smaller orders. You've tested their product, they've delivered, go with the bigger orders, and then in parallel, look for next generation.
Right. So identify technology, very important there. So identify the private sector champions, look for the technology. Sarjan, what's your suggestion?
I'd say it's really 3 things, and all 3 things really are for the government and the armed forces, because in our ecosystem, at the end of the day, private sector, academia, we're all, relatively speaking, unimportant compared to the single customer, right? I mean, it is the armed forces, it's the warfighter, it's MOD, it's political leadership. So really focusing on them. I'd say, as I said in my opening remarks, this is a huge opportunity. To answer your question, what do we need? I'd say we need clarity, resourcing, and like a ferocious determination to actually hit the finishing line. And I'll unpack all 3. Clarity in terms of what do the Indian Armed Forces need today, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Just achieve that clarity, achieve that focus, make it clear to every stakeholder in the ecosystem, this is the pathway, this is the plan, you don't need to invest in anything but this. So that's the clarity. Second, resourcing. At every stage of the company's life cycle, right? On a previous panel, I heard about loans needing to be taken by MSMEs. Equity finance is what they need. They don't need debt finance. So at every stage in that company or that product's life cycle, it is on government to make sure that appropriate resourcing is provided, whether it's an IDEX grant, whether it's creating a VC ecosystem that's defense focused, whether it's, straight up R&D funding being provided by the government in exchange for some future orders, which a lot of our Western allies and partners do. So that's the second piece, resourcing at every stage. And then the third one, when I call it ferocious determination, I mean a real culture shift within MOD, within the armed forces, to say, it's not enough to say, I've pushed the file along. It is on me to make sure that that procurement happens. It is on me to make sure that that R&D project is completed and a capability is actually brought to the field, right? So it's a culture shift. So clarity, what do we need? Resourcing, because as a nation, we can afford it now, that much is clear. And we have what it takes to be able to become, I think, world leaders over the next decade. And thirdly, this culture shift within government. And one last comment, I think, on this question of culture shift, we really need to move away from mistrusting ourselves, right? Private sector mistrust, government mistrust, academia, and instead just recognize we're all kind of in this together. We will fail. There will be moments where, less than the desired outcome has been achieved, but it's all a part of the process.
Right. Very interesting suggestions there, Sarjan. So clarity, resourcing, and what was the third aspect that you mentioned? Determination. Get the file to the finish line, get the capability, get the product. So thank you very much, gentlemen. You've just heard it from the best in the business here. And I think we've given General Maan a lot to think about. I did see him take down notes there. But thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts, gentlemen. I'm afraid we are completely out of time. We don't have time to take questions, but my esteemed panelists will be there to speak with you after this. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our keynote speaker, Chief of the Army Staff General Dwivedi, and our panelists for a fascinating discussion on the evolution of doctrines and integration of technology and jointness in modern warfare. I request our founder and editor-in-chief, Mr. Nitin Gokhale, to present mementos to our keynote speaker, moderator, and panelists. A memento to our keynote speaker, General Dwivedi. Careful. To our panelist, Mr. Ashok Atluri. To Mr. Ashish Kansal. To Mr. Sarjan Shah. And our moderator, Mr. Sandeep Unnithan. I request all of you to please stand together for a group photograph. We have 2 more knowledge sessions to go, and then the launch of the book on Bharat Shakti's 10-year journey and the fireside chat with the CDS. I think you'll all agree it's time for a short tea break. So let's proceed to the kiosk area, have a cup of tea or coffee. I will see you back here in 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, to manage the time. Thank you so much.
"10 years ago, a simple but bold idea was born to create a space that showcased not what India buys, but what India builds.
We would always say we are the largest importer of defense equipment because seen as a so-called badge of honor, but it's actually, an insult that you are not doing anything. But Nitin said, let us start it in a way, and then he was able to gather all the domestic actual innovators, not the people who just manufacture or input do transfer of technology, but the actual guys who have created IP products, and he gathered them and he started showing them to the world. So this was a new platform, absolutely new thought, a daring thought, and there was no forum in which foreign countries could come and see and say, listen, we want to see only Indian products. What are the Indian products? The defense exhibitions were more, more foreign oriented, with larger companies taking larger things, and of course DRDO would also be there. But this was a forum in which private companies, just self-funded R&D, taken big risks. They were not being exposed, and their products were world's best. So this was an opportunity where they could actually show their way to the guys who actually matter, the defense attaches and sometimes even the ambassadors and the other senior people coming from other countries. This was a very big deal, I would say.
From vision to results, the Conclave became the bridge between Indian creators and the world's buyers.
It's always been a pleasure to attend the annual session of the Bharat Shakti Defense Conclave. It's been a great learning experience for me. I have not missed a single one in the last few years, starting in 2015 with the DS conference to where it has taken now in shaping the Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda of the Honorable Prime Minister. The opportunity to meet many people, including the people in the services, people from the Defense Ministry, people from abroad at that conference, looking at the exhibition, looking at what products are being made by our country's young people. It's a real pleasure to see the progress for the last 10 years. I think what differentiates Bharat Shakti's annual defense conclave from many other conclaves that are taking place is his personal understanding about the defense ecosystem, about the Indian geography, and about our neighborhood in depth, and his ability to bring all stakeholders together who are involved in this process. And this creates a very vibrant atmosphere at this conclave and a good dialogue and discussion and presentations.
If you look at the three words itself, the India Defense Conclave, three words of great significance, because India matters for the world. Defense is ultimately a public good which enables a certain degree of deterrence, which contributes to regional deterrence, which contributes to Indian well-being and regional well-being. And the third word, of course, is the conclave, where from an initial conference, it evolved into a conclave where there is a free and frank coming together of minds to make India more self-reliant, to make the region more secure, and to have defense itself as a regional and global public good in which Indian armed forces, the Indian industry, Indian research and development establishments, public as well as private, play a huge role.
Very innovative, very thought-provoking, and very effective. This seminar, I find, is not just a series of talks. It is a reminder that behind every system that we build, every new structure that we create, every decision that we make, there is a requirement to strengthen the mindsets, the participative effect of the industry, the academia, we have the huge gathering of defense attaches, we have participation by small-scale industries, we have participation by the large defense industries. So it's an, we have the best of minds being able to put together the ideas, to be able to share their insights on a whole lot of subjects. And I think having one theme subject for each edition makes a huge impact.
The India Defence Conclave, headed by Sri Nitin Gokhale ji, brings a sense of serious strategic depth, an understanding of current realities in the defense ecosystem, not only in the region and within the country, but also globally, and also gives a sense of where things are going. And in that sense, it's truly a knowledge event and not an exhibition showcase.
For 10 years, the India Defence Conclave has brought together visionaries, innovators and leaders to redefine India's place in global defence. From import dependence to export excellence, this is India's story of strength, resilience and innovation.
So in 2016, we decided to start a platform where Indian defense industry, the users in the military and strategic thinkers could come together. Not in a conference in closed doors, but in an open forum where they could deliberate, discuss ways to strengthen India's defense as well as India's voice on the world stage.
Since day one, it was about balance, strategy and execution, the big picture and the finer details.
For me, there was a definite purpose to Bharat Shakti being raised. I had seen the gap that existed between policymakers, the forces, as also the industry. This was one platform which was supposed to bring all of them together.
With every passing year, the size and the scope of the conference increased. Number of industries, number of ideas, but the mission was the same, to raise India's voice in the world and strengthen India's defenses.
People see the conclave on the day it unfolds. What they don't see are the sleepless nights, the chaos, the pressure.
Behind every handshake that you witness, there are hundreds of hands working behind the stage.
The conclave became more than an event. It became a meeting ground, a place where innovators, policymakers, diplomats, military leaders and industry leaders find common ground.
This was a rising India, making its voice heard, not just to its own audience, but also to the world.
9 years, 9 conclaves, and every single one of them has been a battle on its own. Not on the front lines, but behind the curtains.
We have built this year after year with a team that believes in something bigger than themselves.
Now, as we complete the 10th year, there is a need to look back and look ahead. To tell the India story in a stronger voice that can reach the relevant people, not just in the Indian defense sector, but also across the globe, which is in a flux. Behind the grandeur
is grit.
And behind the conclave is belief.
10 years ago, a simple but bold idea was born to create a space that showcased not what India buys, but what India builds.
We would always say we are the largest importer of defense equipment. It was seen as a so-called badge of honor, but it's actually, an insult that you are not doing anything. But Nitin said, let us start it in a way, and then he was able to gather all the domestic actual innovators, not the people who just manufacture or input do transfer of technology, but the actual guys who have created IP products, and he gathered them and he started showing them to the world. So this was a new platform, absolutely new thought, a daring thought, and there was no forum in which foreign countries could come and see and say, listen, we want to see only Indian products. What are the Indian products? The defense exhibitions were more, more foreign oriented, with larger companies taking larger things, and of course DRDO would also be there. But this was a forum in which private companies, the self-funded R&D, taken big risks. They were not being exposed, and their products were world's best. So this was an opportunity where they could actually show their way to the guys who actually matter, the defense attaches and sometimes even the ambassadors and the other senior people coming from other countries. This was a very big deal, I would say. Yeah.
From vision to results, the conclave became the bridge between Indian creators and the world's buyers.
It's always been a pleasure to attend the annual session of the Bharat Shakti Defense Conclave. It's been a great learning experience for me. I have not missed a single one in the last few years, starting in 2015 with the DS conference to where it has taken now in shaping the Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda of the Honorable Prime Minister. The opportunity to meet many people, including the people in the services, people from the Defense Ministry, people from abroad at that conference, looking at the exhibition, looking at what products are being made by our country's young people. It's a real pleasure to see the progress for the last 10 years. I think what differentiates Bharat Shakti's annual defense conclave from many other conclaves that are taking place is his personal understanding about the defense ecosystem, about the Indian geography, and about our neighborhood in depth, and his ability to bring all stakeholders together who are involved in this process. And this creates a very vibrant atmosphere at this conclave and a good dialogue and discussion and presentations.
If you look at the three words itself, the India Defense Conclave, three words of great significance, because India matters for the world. Defense is ultimately a public good which enables a certain degree of deterrence, which contributes to regional deterrence, which contributes to Indian well-being and regional well-being. And the third word, of course, is the conclave, where from an initial conference, it evolved into a conclave where there is a free and frank coming together of minds to make India more self-reliant, to make the region more secure, and to have defense itself as a regional and global public good in which Indian armed forces, the Indian industry, Indian research and development establishments, public as well as private, play a huge role.
Very innovative, very thought-provoking, and very effective. This seminar, I find, is not just a series of talks. It is a reminder that behind every system that we build, every new structure that we create, every decision that we make, there is a requirement to strengthen the mindsets, the participative effect of the industry, the academia, we have the huge gathering of defense attaches. We have participation by small scale industries. We have participation by the large defense industries. So it's an, we have the best of minds being able to put together the ideas, to be able to share their insights on a whole lot of subjects. And I think having one theme subject for each edition makes a huge impact.
The India Defence Conclave, headed by Sri Nitin Gokhaleji, brings sense of serious strategic depth, an understanding of current realities in the defence ecosystem, not only in the region and within the country, but also globally, and also gives a sense of where things are going. And in that sense, it's truly a knowledge event and not an exhibition showcase.
For 10 years, the India Defence Conclave has brought together visionaries, innovators and leaders to redefine India's place in global defence. From import dependence to export excellence, this is India's story of strength, resilience and innovation.
So in 2016, we decided to start a platform where Indian defense industry, the users in the military and strategic thinkers could come together. Not in a conference in closed doors, but in an open forum where they could deliberate, discuss ways to strengthen India's defense as well as India's voice on the world stage.
Since day one, it was about balance, strategy and execution, the big picture and the finer details.
For me, there was a definite purpose to Bharat Shakti being raised. I had seen the gap that existed between policymakers, the forces, as also the industry. This was one platform which was supposed to bring all of them together.
With every passing year, the size and the scope of the conference increased. Number of industries, number of ideas, but the mission was the same, to raise India's voice in the world and strengthen India's defenses.
People see the conclave on the day it unfolds. What they don't see are the sleepless nights, the chaos, the pressure.
Behind every handshake that you witness, there are hundreds of hands working behind the stage.
The conclave became more than an event. It became a meeting ground, a place where innovators, policymakers, diplomats, military leaders and industry leaders find common ground.
This was a rising India, making its voice heard, not just to its own audience, but also to the world.
9 years, 9 conclaves, and every single one of them has been a battle on its own. Not on the front lines, but behind the curtains.
We have built this year after year with a team that believes in something bigger than themselves.
Now, as we complete the 10th year, there is a need to look back and look ahead. To tell the India story in a stronger voice that can reach the relevant people, not just in the Indian defense sector, but also across the globe, which is in a flux. Behind the grandeur is grit.
And behind the conclave is belief.
Ten years ago, a simple but bold idea was born to create a space that showcased not what India buys, but what India builds.
They would always say we are the largest importer of defense equipment. It was seen as a so-called badge of honor, but it's actually, an insult that you are not doing anything. But Nitin said, let us start it in a way, and then he was able to gather all the domestic actual innovators, not the people who just manufacture or input do transfer of technology, but the actual guys who have created IP products, and he gathered them and he started showing them to the world. So this was a new platform, absolutely new thought, a daring thought, and there was no forum in which foreign countries could come and see and say, listen, we want to see only Indian products. What are the Indian products? The defense exhibitions were more, more foreign oriented, with larger companies taking larger things, and of course DRDO would also be there. But this was a forum in which private companies, the self-funded R&D, taken big risks. They were not being exposed, and their products were world's best. So this was an opportunity where they could actually show their way to the guys who actually matter, the defense attaches, and sometimes even the ambassadors and the other senior people coming from other countries. This was a very big deal, I would say.
From vision to results, the conclave became the bridge between Indian creators and the world's buyers.
It's always been a pleasure to attend the annual session of the Bharat Shakti Defense Conclave. It's been a great learning experience for me. I have not missed a single one in the last few years, starting in 2015 with the DS conference to where it has taken now in shaping the Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda of the Honorable Prime Minister.
Ladies and gentlemen, I request you to please start settling down.
The opportunity to meet
We have 2 more sessions to go, knowledge sessions.
people in the
Then we have the launch of the book on Bharat Shakti's 10-year journey and the fireside chat with the CDS. I request all of you to please start settling down.
what products are being made.
The 5th knowledge session is about to begin in about a couple of minutes. Request you to please start settling down.
For the last 10 years. I think what differentiates Bharat Shakti, the annual defense conclave, from many other conclaves that are taking place, is his personal understanding about the defense ecosystem, about the Indian geography, and about our neighborhood in depth.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to begin the next knowledge session. Innovation Shaping India's Defense Edge. This session will explore how innovation has become the true force multiplier, redefining capability development, strengthening self-reliance, and positioning India as a hub for next-generation defense technologies. How creativity, agility, and indigenous innovation are powering India's defense transformation. I request all of you to please start settling down. May I request the moderator of this session, Mr. Ranag Singh, to please come up along with our panelists, Mr. Ashim Ashok Patil, Managing Director and CEO, Infotech Software and Systems, iTech RFID, Mr. Vivek Mishra, CEO, Refe M Fiber, Mr. Anirudh Suri, venture capitalist and author of The Great Tech Game. Have you seen Anirudh? Okay. I think we'll just give a couple of minutes for Mr. Suri to come. Why don't you take a seat? And the moment he arrives, we can start the session. I'm sure other people will also start trooping in. Mr. Suri has joined us. Thank you so much. Once again, let me quickly introduce our moderator and panelists. Our moderator is Anak Singh, Technology and National Security Specialist. Our panelists, Ashim Ashok Patil, MD and CEO, Infotech Software and Systems. Mr. Vivek Mishra, CEO, Refe Fiber. Mr. Anirudh Suri, Venture Capitalist and author of The Great Tech Game. I hand over the session to you, and I've already briefed you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I know it's a bit difficult post-tea to, come back in the numbers, but we'll get started, given our respect for time and the paucity of it as well. It is a very relevant session. Innovation is no more an afterthought. We may have realized, hearing all the eminent speakers earlier, it is now almost a centerpiece of our industrial strategy, going forward our national security strategy, and our long-term operational readiness. And I think innovation in its various avatars is best exemplified by the people in the panel who have joined us. So thank you for joining us. My first question would be to Mr. Mishra. RAFI is an example of a stellar example of a success story that went bottoms up in terms of R&D. Tell us about your experience in terms of how that innovation, first of all, the innovation in terms of technology and also the ecosystem that must have evolved from 2016 onwards to 2025 in India. How easy, how difficult was it? Tell us more about your experience, please.
Thank you, sir, for the question. So it has been almost 10 years for us. And why both of us moved back to start something here was that we wanted to build technologically advanced aerospace systems for our security forces. And it was hard, and it's still hard. What is needed for innovation is human capital, actual money capital, and a lot of time. So we started with interaction with the users on how to develop systems so that it can help them. And then we went towards multiple facets of development to make sure that we are able to make the system. Now, we had spent a lot of time in the US, and we were enjoying a good ecosystem there when it comes to manufacturing and research. But what we realized at that time was doing research here is... Um, yeah. So what we realized during that time was doing research here was actually more expensive than the US, and we slowly built an infrastructure around different facets of technology, be it materials, be it mechanical, electronics, software, controls, to make sure that we are able to develop a good system, because these are all the things that are required. Now, coming 10 years later, I still don't see a lot of progress like I would want, especially in terms of people wanting to invest in research, people wanting to invest in manufacturing. The other day I was posed a similar question, and my response was similar, saying that the government has been doing its part over last 10 to 14 years in spending a lot of money and a lot of time towards how to encourage innovation and research and manufacturing in India. Now it's time that private sector does the same thing, be it the companies, be it the investors. We need to spend more time and money in these two.
Sure. Taking off from that point, I'll bring in Anirudh. Anirudh, you've been an investor in the ecosystem now for some time. What is needed right now in India to actually crowd in private capital? R&D, by and large, is lopsided because it's maximum from the government, minuscule from the private sector. What can be done to actually change that?
See, I think I largely agree with what Vivek mentioned, and we were having this conversation right before. Also, I think that all arms, it's in a case where there's a chicken or egg problem, neither one can come first. Traditionally, in any industry, if you look at it, both have to move hand in hand. And as the government, as the Indian Armed Forces start to change up their acquisitions process, their focus on new emerging tech, realize that the future of warfare is changing, I think the other side has to move quickly as well. The unfortunate part, I would say, is that there's a big bridge, a big divide to be bridged today, where if you were to look at the Bangalore tech ecosystem in India today, the geopolitical objectives of India are not very deeply understood, I would say, in that ecosystem. I'm being very frank. I think sitting in Delhi, we might understand it a bit more, but there's a big divide to be bridged. I think that is the first step. I think once you understand how much importance India in the Indian Armed Forces, the Indian strategic community is placing on now the integration of tech into its operations, how the operational concepts are evolving, as the earlier speakers have mentioned, I think the first piece will have to be that more of that understanding has to seep in into the broader tech innovation ecosystem of India. Because there are a lot of entrepreneurs who could enter this space, a lot of venture capitalists who are sitting there investing in various other sectors who could start investing in this space. But there's just this, I would say, a divide to be bridged, number one. I think the second piece is probably more well known, right? Which is the fact that there's one customer, which is always a concern for a private sector, private venture capitalist, or a general capital provider. I think we've seen this play out in other economies, in other countries, where often companies that start off in the defense ecosystem will eventually diversify into becoming part defense focused, part commercially focused. And I think that understanding again has to be there, that you cannot expect an Indian defense tech startup to be well diversified from day one, right? But I think both sides have to understand that. I think the private venture capitalists are correct in saying that, yes, we don't want the risk of having only one customer. I think the startup is correct in saying we can't do both day one. If I was talking about the example of a company like Palantir with Vivek also, that even if you look at a company like Palantir in the US, which is probably one of the biggest success stories to come out of the startup ecosystem there, you find that their first few years in their journey were very much focused on the defense use case, right? And it's only when that company decides that, okay, now I want to go public, I want to become a much bigger player, they start to diversify. And I think today, if you look at their public documents, at least they're about 50-50 in terms of, roughly 50-50 in terms of government use cases versus government revenues versus non, right? That's number two. Number three, I would say is you just need more venture capital funds focused on this space. We started our venture capital fund about 10, 12 years ago now, focused on the internet space. That time there were 3 or 4 VC funds, generally focused on the internet economy, right? I think the Indian defense space might be at a similar time point where there's a few, right? I think you represent one as well, but I think you need at least, I would say 10 or 15, right? The numbers are staggering. Anduril, a company in the US, raises a $2.5 billion round, one company. And I can probably total that up. I mean, the US startups in this space and the number of US VC funds focused on the defense ecosystem are in tens, right? In India, I think our total funding this year is 300 mil, of which, Vivek, you represent a third. So that's nowhere, right? So if, again, adjusting for the size of our defense budgets, US versus India, I think India needs to be, our VC ecosystem should be a third or a fifth of the US, is what I would say it needs to be. Even if our defense budget is a tenth, our tech innovation spending has to be a third or a fifth of the US.
Sure. I'll come back to a few points that you actually mentioned, and especially about Palantir right now. I think yesterday there was an article that came out. China's answer to Palantir is oversubscribed for IPO by 7,500 times. Like, you can imagine there are certain things. And what are we missing in terms of building a Palantir here? That is also something I think innovation can generally answer. But coming to Mr. Patil, you're a new entrant into the defense ecosystem. What got you here, and what's your experience been like?
Hello. Yeah, hi. Thank you for the question. I'll just do a little bit of introduction. We are new in the defense vertical. This is the second year we are attending this show. We started our journey by coming to the show last year, but we are a 25-year-old company in doing supply chain traceability solutions and inventory management solutions across manufacturing, logistics, and retail. So we work on a technology called RFID, and the RFID technology basically is new because it has become affordable, but the technology, the first early applications of RFID were in World War II. So the technology and the physics and math behind RFID has always been there. But the commercial applications started coming since 2000, 2002, and that is when we started this journey. We have been positioning the technology against cost-effective options available like barcode. Though barcode is highly infeasible in environments, dusty, greasy, oily environments, it is infeasible in when it comes to security, because anybody can print and apply a barcode. Though RFID is far better, but always the price was compared with barcode, and that's the reason where the technology adoption took a lot of time. But unlike many other technologies, RFID became popular in India because of the government applications. It was the government of India, Ministry of Road Transport, which adopted it at a larger scale, where we see the FASTags on everybody's vehicle today. So it was the government who adopted RFID, and then RFID technology became commonly used by the private sector, unlike other technologies. Similarly, the second large application or use of RFID in India was the Indian Customs, the Ministry of Finance, where every container exported and imported in and from India is today sealed with RFID. So the government adopted the technology, and then we started getting into the retail. Why we entered into the defense sector is because we feel that there is immense opportunity here. We are in the business of object traceability in a secure form, where to increase the throughput. So wherever there is cumbersome counting processes, wherever there is issue of visibility, wherever there is issue of inventory management, RFID has played an important role. Countries like US and many other countries in the Europe has adopted the technology and they are far ahead in their implementation curve. And I feel that in a country like India, we are now ready, and we have been talking to various departments across the defense for various applications, and we are getting good response and good traction. A lot of POCs and pilots have started. And because of the secure nature of RFID in identification, I feel that this is a good space for us and we are learning.
Right. One of the things that I think you brought out was that government acts as a market maker as well. Coming back to you, Mr. Mishra, I think one thing that you mentioned was about talent, and Mr. Patil mentioned about scale. I think we've done a lot in terms of bringing the innovation ecosystem to a certain sense of vibrancy in India. What more can be done? Like, what do you expect? You've traversed that journey. You've traversed the valley of death, bottoms up. What can be done to solve for scale and talent in India?
Yeah, I'll try to be honest about this. So when we talk about talent, say for deep tech, be it software, be it electronics, be it materials, I don't think we are there. We have a very small number of people who can actually contribute to the project, and a lot of companies, if you talk to a lot of startups, even if you talk to bigger companies, they will be complaining about this. So at this point, what India has, which other countries don't, is the young human capital. And it's high time that we start thinking about how to train them to work towards deep tech rather than riding bikes. Because it takes a lot of time to not only get a fresh graduate and train them, but also people who have worked in good industries for 10, 15 years. And actually it's harder because they get trained a certain way. And first that you have to make them unlearn to make them learn again on how to do good research, how to, as simple as do a design of experiment. So there is lot of gap there, and how the industry can help is giving them that kind of work. And they can give them that kind of work when they start working on these kind of projects where it goes deep into one particular, even as small topic as it could be. Everybody doesn't need to build systems. You can go very deep into one small subsystem and then make not only a good technology, but a great business out of it.
Anirudh, coming to that, I think I'll pose a similar question. Mr. Mishra tried to understand, basically explain a couple of elements to that. But in terms of sustenance of innovation, which has a long gestation period, what more can be done via the defense ecosystem and otherwise as well? How do we evolve that ecosystem to be as vibrant as, say, the American military-industrial complex or the Silicon Valley, or or the Israeli complex? What can be done more?
So let me break that down. I mean, it's a big question, right? So let me break it down into three pieces. One is the talent piece, which Vivek has spoken. I'll add a couple of points on that. The capital piece. And then the third, let's say, is the broader institutional / ecosystem piece. Right now, on the talent piece, see now Vivek, for example, if I may, now you're an example of someone who's come back after doing a PhD in the US, you and your brother, as you were mentioning. Now, you come back, otherwise you have the option of staying there, becoming part of the defense tech ecosystem in the US, let's say. If you look at the US defense tech ecosystem, there's a lot of Indian talent also, much like in other parts of Silicon Valley, even in the defense tech space, right? You have a lot of Indian origin folks. Now to bring that talent back, what do you have to give them, right? One, you have to give them, I think, capital to have them be secure in the fact that what they want to do, the vision that they can have the time and the resources to build that out. Right? I think you were mentioning that in some way or the other that you needed that infrastructure to be built out. You need to hire best talent, right? I mean, you're not going to be, one person is not enough.
Yep.
You need a massive team. That entire set of talent that you need to hire and retain will need money, right? Will need capital. And then I would say the third thing that I think sometimes we miss is the fact that smart people want to be working in a ecosystem of smart people. That's why the US university ecosystem, in my view, remains the best, because it's the best working along with the best. So everyone's feeling challenged. Everyone's feeling like they have to compete. So I think we have to create a critical mass of great talent working on maybe very specific needs as have been identified by, let's say, the Indian Armed Forces, the Indian government, etc. But you need to have, let's say, across 8 or 10 subsectors, at least 6 to 8 teams in each of those subsectors, very carefully identified, nurtured, funded, so that out of those 6 to 8 to 10 in each subsector, with them competing, hopefully 1 or 2 champions will emerge in each. Right? You cannot say that I'll place my bet on only one. Right? You have to have competition. Ultimately, competition is the best driver of innovation. So you have to remember that we have to actually nurture competition in the defense tech ecosystem for us to have the best innovation. Otherwise, our innovation will remain subpar because we'll be not competing with the best of the world.
Yep.
Right? And then you'll always have either a subpar product, which will not either be best on quality or not be best on price, or neither.
Yep.
So I would say that if we look at the talent capital and then the ecosystem piece, then we really can create, I mean, and there are examples to learn from, not just the US or China, by the way. There are other countries that have in specific subsectors of the defense ecosystem built out globally competitive industries, whether it's in drones, right, or in cyber, or in others, let's say, other domains. Countries have, within a span of, let's say, I would say 5 to 10 years, built out globally competitive industries, right? So I would say that that's the crux of what I would suggest.
In general, I think as an advice to emerging startups, you know, all of you, do you think it is important to be customer backwards or technology forward? How do you solve that riddle for a startup trying to enter the defense tech field? I'll give it to answer.
Yeah. See, there are 2 areas which are generally where the fork comes. And one is the research side of the business, and another is the application side of it, you know. So there is a technology, either you get into the physics, math and the science part of it and, you know, try to further develop it, make it simpler, make it richer, make it feature rich. And another side of the business which startups can do is use that technology and find different kinds of use cases and applications of the same thing. So nothing is right or wrong. You know, it is basically what you are equipped for and where the market is leading you to. And when I started the business 25 years ago, or when we are entering into defense, we are like a defense startup, 1-year-old startup in defense. So I think we are more from understanding the problem statements of the defense sector and trying to apply the solutions we already have in other sectors in this particular sector.
Sure.
So this is our approach, and this we feel is a low-hanging fruit for us, wherein we can do some quick pilots, quick POCs, learn from the industry stalwarts, you know, integrate it with other technology solutions, because at the end of the day, we are a system integrator. Any system is a subsystem of a larger system, and that is what we understand. So for us, the approach is to start with solving the problems with use cases which are relevant, using the various applications of the technology, and then the second layer would be to try to make it feature rich and do the relevant research in that field.
Mr. Mishra, I'll pose the same question to you. In terms of technology forward, because you have been, you know, a pioneer in terms of R&D, especially in the UAV space. or is it customer backwards? How does that riddle actually pan out?
See, it has to be customer backwards, especially for the field that you're working in. What has happened over last 10 years is that we have seen the space slightly opening up for the our interaction with the users. That needs to increase at least 10 folds, because I can develop an amazing drone using LLM which does that, hey, go left, and it will go left. What does it do to the user? So it needs to be attuned to what the user wants. We should go study the operational environments. We should go study what the user needs, where are they facing challenges, what could be the next challenge. Thinking about that, a technology can be developed which could be readily adopted, because most of the times it happens that you're developing something which is amazing, but you don't have subsystems or ecosystems to convert it into a system which could be useful to the user. So you could be developing amazing technology, but again, it's not going to be bought, and then the business struggles. So it has to be user oriented, and uh, what I can feel is that we are opening up towards when it comes to industry and defense forces collaborations, but it needs to increase a lot, so that we are able to provide the solutions and predict what is going to happen in the future vis-a-vis other technologies which are with our adversaries, and provide these solutions.
Right. Anirudh, I'll leave the final word to you in terms of, what should the next exciting framework for defense tech, in general innovation around this area look like for India and for the ecosystem in general?
Sure. Let me add one thing to what Vivek was mentioning. I think one of the best ways to answer earlier question of customer or tech forward, one of the interesting things, some of you who track this would have noticed that what the US has done, for example, let me take an example there. They've inducted some of the private sector folks into the army. A lot of the army veterans have moved to the valley to set up either venture capital funds or start their own companies. And then there's a combination, right? So I think that kind of infusion is critical here also.
Yeah.
Where I think the Indian armed forces should consider inducting many folks from the tech world who might not be customer forward in the operational context, but bring them in, and vice versa. A lot of the Indian veterans who have that inclination should then actually be encouraged and supported to start up, because they'll have that operational experience and context understanding very well, which is not easy to gain in a year or two. It's not like if I'm sent to the border or if I'm sent to a site, I'll suddenly understand everything. Right? It's not a thing to pick up, but I think it's that kind of fusion of the talent from both worlds, which is the bridge I was talking about earlier, which I think is critical for us to really accelerate, maybe 10x, maybe 20x, right? And I think that's what could really cause a real acceleration in the kind of innovation, user-focused innovation that we can see in India. So I mean, I'll wrap up my thoughts there.
We can have one question from the audience, if at all, any questions anybody would want to have, panelists. I don't see it. Is there anyone? I think that's been quite an discussion around innovation and innovation frameworks. I think there's a lot to be done. A lot has been done. And I think it will remain the centerpiece of our industrial strategy and our national security strategy going forward. And I think it's a whole of government approach that earlier was also mentioned that would matter for innovation to fructify and turn into products and turn into user-centric commercialization policies that would ultimately reap benefits for the larger ecosystem. So thank you so much for joining in, and thank you so much to all the panelists for their views and opinions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anag. And may I request Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee, retired, to please present mementos to our moderator and panelists. A memento to our moderator, Mr. Anag Singh, Technology and National Security Specialist. To Mr. Ashok Patil, Managing Director and CEO, Infotech Software and Systems. To Mr. Vivek Mishra, CEO, Rayfay Fiber. And Mr. Anirudh Suri, venture capitalist and author of The Great Tech Game. Thank you so much. I request all of you to please stand together for a photograph, a group photograph. So this session was a thought-provoking one on India's innovation ecosystem, and it is clear that the defense sector's future edge will be forged not just in factories and labs, but through the spirit of innovation that runs across our services and industry. And now for the last knowledge session of this year's India Defense Conclave, Strategic Partnerships in an Uncertain World. This brings together voices from India and abroad to discuss how cooperation, co-creation and co-production can transform India into a strategic hub for next-generation defense technologies and platforms. May I call upon our moderator and the panelists. The moderator for this session is Amitabh Revi, Deputy Editor, StratNewsGlobal.com. May I request him to please come up. Our panelists, Mr. Roderick McLean, VP and GM, Air Mobility and Maritime Missions, Lockheed Martin, Mr. Andaleep Shadman, MD, Hensoldt India, and Mr. Venkat Katkuri, Head, Airspace, Defense and Space, India and South Asia. We were also to be joined by Dr. Vivek Lal, the Chief Executive, General Atomics Global Corporation. He had a last-minute emergency and he could not travel. However, he has recorded a message and sent us. So first, Amitabh, if it's okay, I will play that message and then I'll hand over the session to you. Let's hear Dr. Lal, please, and thereafter Amitabh will take over.
Greetings, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you virtually at the 10th India Defense Conclave by Bharat Shakti. I have known Nitin Gokhale and Bharat Shakti since the beginning, and the path that they have forged is admirable, and it's a huge asset not only for India but the world. And so I congratulate Nitin Gokhale and his team for creating this entity. When we look around the world today, uncertainty seems to be the only constant, whether in security, in economics, or in technology. In such times, every nation must ask a simple question: what can we truly rely on? For me, the answer is clear. We can rely on trusted technology, technology that performs, endures, and strengthens partnerships. India today stands at a pivotal moment in history. It is not just a market or a military power, it is a strategic anchor for global security and stability. From Washington to Tokyo, from Canberra to Paris, nations are aligning with India because India represents resilience. We have witnessed that resilience firsthand. When we began our journey with India nearly 2 decades ago, few could have imagined the depth of collaboration we enjoy today. From high-end unmanned aircraft to advanced sensors and artificial intelligence mission systems, this relationship has evolved from buyer-seller to co-developer, co-producer, and co-innovator. Our purpose is not just to deliver systems to build certainty. In an uncertain world, certainty becomes a strategic resource. Unmanned aircraft patrol thousands of miles over open ocean. They do so with a reliability rate that is unmatched. These aircraft are not merely platforms, they are persistent, sovereign data generators that deliver maritime awareness, deter conflict, and at the end of the day, save lives. This is what certainty looks like. It is measurable. It is hours of flight without failure, seamless data exchange across networks, and confidence that a mission will succeed when it matters most. As we move toward co-production, operational certainty is becoming industrial certainty. We are developing new supply chains, local component manufacturing, and engineering programs that empower Indian talent to be central to the next generation of aerospace innovation. Of course, certainty is not enough. Innovation multiplies its value. General Atomics, for example, works across unmanned systems, electromagnetic systems, nuclear technologies, and advanced materials. Across all these domains, we ask, how can we innovate with partners, not merely for them? Innovation today is not a zero-sum game. It combines Indian software brilliance, American system integration, European engineering, and Indo-Pacific domain experience to create capabilities that no single nation could build alone. The Quad as a worldwide example, the United States, India, Japan, and Australia, is more than a diplomatic grouping. It is a network of trust built on common technology standards, transparency, and accountability. Interoperable frameworks are emerging that connect Indian manufacturing with Japanese sensors, Australian mission software, and US systems integration. We support this by standardizing data architecture and secure supply chain protocols that make cooperation practical and dependable. Partnerships in the Middle East and Europe are expanding as well. Nations are seeking trusted collaborators for energy systems, nuclear technologies, and unmanned platforms. The unifying lesson is clear. Partnerships grounded in transparency and technological integrity can indeed outlast any geopolitical turbulence. The US-India partnership is no longer transactional. It is transformational. Every joint program builds predictability in a world that urgently needs it. We have invested deeply in India because we see the country not as a customer but a co-architect of the future. Together we can define how aerospace, maritime, and energy technologies will design, govern, and be trusted worldwide. US and India are already working side by side, developing algorithms, composite structures, and propulsion systems that will drive the next generation of flight. It is about a shared destiny in technological leadership. The past few years, I would submit, from pandemics to cyber attacks to supply chain shocks, have taught us that resilience is itself a form of deterrence. A resilient defense partnership does not rely on one factory or one vendor or one country. It relies on networks of trust, redundancy, and innovation. That is why it is prudent to emphasize that open architectures, modular design, and secure data pathways is the way of the future. These are the unseen foundations of deterrence in this century. When systems continue to operate despite disruption, they project strength far beyond borders. India, of course, understands this deeply. Its strategy for diversification, balancing domestic production with strategic imports, is a model for how modern defense ecosystems should evolve. Behind every technology are people, engineers, scientists, and operators, united by purpose. When I meet young Indian engineers working on various critical areas, whether in startups, medium enterprises, small enterprises, large enterprises, I see not only a technical skill level, but a conviction, a desire to make India safer and the world more stable. That conviction is what binds all of us. We operate on three enduring principles: trust, transparency, and technology. Trust earned through action, transparency through collaboration, and technology that performs when it matters most. So what certainty do we bring to the world today? We bring certainty of performance, systems that fly, sail, and operate reliably in the hardest of and harshest of conditions. We bring certainty of partnership, long-term investment, not short-term opportunity. And we bring certainty of purpose, a commitment to help partners, especially India, achieve true strategic autonomy while remaining globally connected. In a world of shifting alliances and fragile supply chains, these certainties matter. They build confidence, deter conflict, and create space for innovation and prosperity. As we look forward, let our shared technologies, our unmanned systems, our reactors, our sensors, and our artificial intelligence systems make us not only stronger individually, but safer collectively. Because in the end, the most powerful technology is not the machine. It is indeed the partnership behind it. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Greeting.
We thank Dr. Lal there for his video message. He would have loved to have been here. We welcome all of you who join us here in person for this knowledge session, and we welcome all those who are joining us online and watching this. We have a panel here, leadership of global companies at the cutting edge. Thank you all for joining us on this, in this 10th year of our journey of India Defense Conclave. Roderick, if I would just start with you, I'll give each of you chance to talk about the topic that we are discussing. That is, Lockheed, how do you see it having evolved its strategic partnerships in India over the long term and the shorter term?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Certainly, Lockheed Martin has had an opportunity to work across the globe, being the largest defense contractor. You know, there's 193 nations in the UN, and we have had contracts with over 100 of those countries. But we certainly value the relationship and partnership we have with India in particular. You know, we've been very fortunate to have some very successful joint ventures working with Tata, with Lockheed Martin, Tilamal, and also with Sikorsky, our helicopter version of Lockheed Martin. And over 15 plus years, you know, those joint ventures have been quite successful. Tilamal in particular has provided the empennage, which is more or less the aft end of the C-130, and they're their single source provider. So built in India, literally made for the world. So we have a lot of trust, reliability, and dependability on Tilamal in particular. But what we value more so is the fact that we've been able to really expand, I would say, the ecosystem supporting that operation, where now we have more than 500 suppliers supporting the Tilamal and the Tassel operation. And about 150 of those are MSME companies as well. So we're able to really build out the larger ecosystem to support Tilamal, Tassel, but more importantly, our global customer base across the globe.
I believe the Russia-Ukraine war is going to enter its 4th year unless something happens. Gaza and Hamas, we've seen the ceasefires now currently, but it keeps erupting. President Trump claims he's resolved about 8 conflicts around the world. Operation Sindoor is continuing. Conflict and strategic partnership. If you want to just outline in Germany and India defense strategic partnerships, and in particular Hensoldt.
Thanks a lot. I mean, extremely important and complex question. Probably a 30-minute could go in this one, but let me try to be as brief as possible. So, yes, what we call this event as Zeitenwende in Germany, it has changed the whole perception about the defense business within the country. Business which was not supposed to be taken in a very prestigious way, maybe 5 years ago, now is becoming something very important. I think the leadership in Europe and also in Germany is realizing that military cooperation with the neighboring or the friendly countries is an extremely good tool to improve the foreign relation as well. Having said that, let's look into how Germany and India is trying to build the business in the defense sector. On one side, I think almost all the European countries, including Germany, is completely over occupied, maybe running at the brim of their capacity to fulfill the demand within Europe because of this conflict. That's one side. And on the other side, it is equally important that I be very specific about Germany, that Germany should do with a friendly countries and a open and fair market like India at the same time. So of course it's a challenge. It's the two conflicting priorities. I'm sure anyone who has done business with German companies knows about, we have a very special word called BAFA, which sometimes comes into picture. Not as complex as ITAR, if I may say so, but yes, it's something. What I have seen in the past, at least in the last two years, the timeline to get the right licenses have been drastically coming down. So I have a confidence that the intent of the government is also getting translated into the realities. It's very important for us. I mean, just to give an idea, we are talking about a opportunity where how we are maturing the cooperation, and having a right licenses in place would be definitely a very important thing to go for a deeper cooperation.
Venkat, I'll get to the European part since we've talked about Germany and India. A little, maybe the next question, but if you want to, we can just take off on the topic itself and Airbus and strategic partnerships in India in an uncertain world that we live in.
Firstly, I would like to congratulate the Bharat Shakti and team, particularly Nitin Gokhale and team, for this 10th edition of India Defense Conclave. Wonderful platform. Complementing what Anglib had mentioned about the Germans, so let me give with my own understanding on the European side as an Indian. You know, we are privileged as Airbus to represent the major European nations, France, Germany, UK and Spain as a company. We work very closely with all the nations, and between India and Europe, we see there is a significant progress on, including on the bilateral trade talks among the European nations. And also there's been a ramp up on the defense ties. As Airbus, we are doing our utmost to further the collaboration between Europe and India in terms of autonomy. And from our end, we are doing our utmost to constructively look at the entire Indian ecosystem, to not only to establish and to work very closely. And again, the very theme is the strategic partnerships. It's for Airbus, India is not just a strategic market. We do consider India as a strategic partner. With the very intent, we've been closely working for decades now with the Indian ecosystem, not only to establish for India, but also to integrate with our global supply chain. That's the genuine intent. But from a European side, given the uncertainties that we see in Europe, the ReArm initiative is something that is also bringing bit of a disruption. So the European supply chain is also is at a slightly on the vulnerable side. So the European companies are exploring strongly to de-risk in terms of that risk, and then opening up partnerships with India. And that's something that the Indian ecosystem should hook on and explore potential opportunities to further. And as Airbus, we are doing our utmost to strengthen these collaborations, to further the industrial partnerships, not only to address, as I said, India opportunities, but the India globe is something that we are quite serious.
Robert, just taking up from the points raised by the other two panelists, global political, economic uncertainties, supply chain disruptions, border tensions, domestic, if I can use the word, compulsions or policies, whether it's in the US or in India, and we know what we're talking about. How are you dealing with all of those in your India story?
Yeah, so part of that story to be more resilient in that case is really to build local capability. In particular, we are establishing an MRO for the C-130 here in India to make it more self-reliant, to allow them to support the aircraft. And what that would also do is certainly allow them to support C-130s more regionally. So it will allow that opportunity to really support the globe. And that also provides an element of resilience for India and also for other countries who could fly in here as well to support their aircraft. So it really is a game-changing opportunity to support that. Certainly, I would say government policy still helps significantly. Back during the COVID era, we were very fortunate to not miss one delivery because it was great that the state of Telangana recognized how important businesses in that area were to the global supply chain. So we're able to work with the state to, first of all, allow employees to come to work, and then more importantly, work with all the activity to get the part to the border, to get to the coastline, transporting the material was critically important to coordinate. So all that was government policy that allowed that to happen, to, even though there was instability, to still allow that global supply chain to be very active.
And the question I think we talked about last time as well, but just wanted your perspective a year later. In terms of what you do as a company, whether it's sensors, radars, electronic weapon suites, protection suites, etc. IPR is crucial. It's crucial for everyone, but what you do is probably referred to as the crown jewels and platforms that everybody uses. IPR and export controls. Those two issues, how do you navigate through them?
I think we are just pointing to the exactly right problems that we are facing through this question. So, we are a sensors company, for those who may not know. We do the sensors for land, air, and naval. I think almost all the sensors, from handheld optics to the optics which goes to the space telescope. That's the range of the products. We realized, especially considering what India wants to mature or take a completely self-reliant role in the domain of defense, that the conventional model of build-to-print license manufacturing is not enough. We hardly achieve indigenous content which is required by the right procurement agency. So this is, I would say, from my experience, is a well-established truth for me, that just by doing the build-to-print manufacturing, first of all, it is highly unlikely that we would reach the indigenous content which is required. Second is, this would also not help further to advance the defense progress in India. Having said that, so what's the next step? We need to go beyond build to print, probably talking about a build to specs or what we call a co-development. And that's exactly the challenges what Amitabh was mentioning comes into picture immediately. Okay, fine. Let's talk about a product which has been developed by Hensoldt in the last 30 years. We own the IPR, and now I see a big RFQ from India. And the idea is to co-share the design. We face two hurdles. The first hurdle faced by the export control. The second hurdle is internal to the company. It's a pure business reason. I mean, why a company should transfer something which the company has acquired and learned over the period of last 30 years to India, and what is the benefit? So from a foreign OEM point of view, the first question, that the first hurdle, which is an export control, I think this has more to do with the bilateral G2G topic, probably to ease out and to make it a little bit more smoother. But the second topic is fully within the scope of the two partnering companies, let's say an Indian company and a foreign company. And there comes the challenge. Probably this is where I also agree when I was hearing Vivek, he was talking about that we need to do a little bit more from an Indian company point of view to invest more on R&D. And I'm purely talking about electronics or a defense electronic system here. That's my caveat. This means that if a foreign OEM has a product and which needed to be adopted or a change to a specific requirement to India, an Indian company should be capable enough to modify by taking the background IPRs, which would anyway be owned by the company or a foreign OEM, and build the foreground IP further. My opinion and my experience is that we are just at the beginning of this journey. We have not yet been there. From a Hensoldt point of view, we are trying such approaches, and probably if I attend the event next time, maybe I can share a little bit much more real example that we are trying to do. But we are, let's say, still at the early stage.
I'm reading between the lines there, something you can't say as of today. Venkat, you spoke about Europe. Germany has been brought up here, but I wanted you to just give us an idea when you say, is there a European model? What I'm trying to get at is it different from the other competition? Is it offering something more stable, not so restrictive, more predictable, or am I twisting what I understood from your first answer?
Now, let me further what I said, let's get into the strategic partnership. I think the word, each time I reflect upon strategic partner, I'm sure all of us would remember the one person we can never forget, the late Shri Manohar Parrikar ji, our former defense minister, was genuinely envisioned strategic partnership. The very intent of him to see that the Indian ecosystem or the Indian industry has the tools and the avenues and opportunities to develop themselves. Of course, and then comes, hindsight, we are talking now. As far as Airbus, I would also like to express gratitude to the Government of India, Ministry of Defense, Indian Air Force on the buy and make contract that we have with the Indian Air Force for the 56 C295s, Avro replacement. That's a classic example of buy and make, wherein working as a foreign OEM, working as prime, contractual prime, closely with our industrial partner Tata Advanced Systems Limited, with an objective to develop the entire ecosystem. I think this is a unique, I'm sure you're aware, that's quite a unique contract, never ever done on the entire, the platform. So Airbus has a privilege to be part of that journey, and we believe, that's giving the industry, building the entire ecosystem, the gestation to learn, develop, and mature. And thereafter comes the strategic partnership. It's a transition from an OEM-led to an Indian-led, and that's exactly being achieved with the forthcoming C295 opportunities that we have. So again, at Airbus, we truly believe in Atmanirbhar Bharat policy, and we are doing our utmost to support and embrace that in our total holistic Airbus policy, because we would like to do more out of India, not just India, but also potentially to source more out of India to be integrated with our global platforms. So that's the message that I was trying to convey, that we are quite committed in India with, together with India, and working on these strategic partnerships.
And I would like to quickly add to that point that there's still another opportunity to continue and build upon that model with the MTA opportunity, where C-130J is a great opportunity to build upon the relationship that certainly you have with Tata, and knowing that the C-130J already operates in India, they have the infrastructure, they'll have an MRO. It's a natural transition to then fully build that aircraft in India and really expand what that aircraft can do for the nation.
If you want to also quickly give us your experience as a company, that is, risk mitigation, how the government has given you clarity, and if there's the regulatory mechanism, these three issues, what have you faced in terms of experiences? Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, from the regulatory point of view and from the support from the government, I think we are passing through a phase which I can describe as one of the best one. From the policy point of view, the DAP 2020 and its implementation, we have seen, and our entire management has seen, a very clear results which you can feel tangibly in terms of the RFQs and conclusion of the RFQs and the process and policies. But of course, I mean, I don't want to undermine what we call it as a compliance landmine. So company still considers some of the factors, but I understand why this is the way it is now, and I hope this should improve. But from the point of view of the clarity, I really do not have much problem in terms of if a company like us wants to look for any clarity in any policies or procedures, and we are not getting, except only one, and I'm sure many of my colleagues sitting in this room would agree with me, which is how do we reach a certain indigenous content level which is stipulated in the RFQ with the by Indian or by IDDM or different categories, considering the fact that we as a country, we don't manufacture raw material. And I'm specifically talking about defense electronics. And this is the only challenge which I don't see this as a policy challenge, but I think this is the, I would say, the situation challenge, and probably I hope that when the DAP 2025 gets released, probably it should address this.
The Chief of Naval Staff said he wished, the IDC, that's the India Defense Conclave, was around in 2047 as well. So maybe next time we can elaborate a little bit more on the electronic part of it. But Venkat, a quick last question to you in terms of any actionable suggestions you have for the Government of India, for the Ministry of Defense or industry.
Yeah, before I answer, I wish this conclave goes beyond 2047 as well. On a lighter note,
I don't know whether we will.
Yeah. So let's, okay, straight to the point, one constructive suggestion, I think I was, as an audience, I was also sharing my, I would say, an input on beyond the ease of doing business. I think it is important, in my humble opinion, we need to also challenge ourselves on the speed of doing business as well. I think that should be the yardstick of measurement, because the technological obsolescence is going to be more challenging going forward with the type of war scenarios and the technologies that we've been challenged. I'll go back on the offsets. Okay, that's for any foreign OEM, I'm sure most of them would agree as well. Today, we have close to, if I'm right, close to $9 billion offset obligation yet to be discharged. That's, I would say, as both a challenge as well as an opportunity. Challenge in terms of certain rigid obligation procedures or to discharge prior, but Government of India, Ministry of Defense has taken note of the foreign OEM pain points. We are aware that they are working very diligently to come up with more industry-friendly policy there to discharge. But that may be prospective. Often in the government of India, anything retrospective is a challenge. So I would like to, just as a matter of confidence, would also like to remember our Honorable Prime Minister's always a constructive quote that he uses, that we should never think incremental. We should think disruptive and exponential. So I think, yeah, at some point of a time, there is a merit to think disruptive. There is a merit to think exponential. Even if we have to go back retrospective, as long as it is helping the Indian ecosystem to leverage of those $9 billion, because going forward, seldom you will have any offset obligations. So how do we reach a convergence point between a foreign OEM and the Indian ecosystem to leverage on that? That's a question. I do not have a wonderful answers. I'm just leaving that thought. But there is a potential that we can converge and work around in the interest of the Indian ecosystem. Second, I would also say, yes, we have been getting certain, I'm talking as an Indian again on behalf of the Indian industry here, industry, when someone invests so much of capex, the infrastructure they wish to cater, that is leveraged across the domains, whether it is civil, aerospace or defense. Okay, hardly the infrastructure knows what is that for. As long as the infrastructure is common, that can be leveraged across the domains. Do we have those synergies between Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Civil Aviation and Department of Space? This is something I believe should be disruptive, should be challenged, and again in the interest of the Indian industry and the ecosystem, where the ecosystem can leverage with the infrastructure that they have to offer and cater across the sector. So, and again, I go back to the offsets here. If we can bring those synergies among these, there is a plethora of opportunities that the Indian industry can leverage and work alongside with the foreign OEM to address the pain point of $9 billion significantly and smoothly to achieve. These are just the thoughts. I know it's disruptive, but I would like to leave those disruptive thoughts.
Venkat, Roderick and Anilib, thank you for lending a voice as we try to explore how India can move from just being a market to a hub and maybe from a buyer to a builder. As Venkat said, and from Roderick and Anilib, and definitely from Nitin and the whole Bharat Shakti team, we can invite you again till 2047 at least. That's what Venkat said. Yeah. And thank you again for joining us for this session. And thank you all those people online as well.
Thank you so much. Our sincere thanks to all of you for that wide-ranging discussion on partnerships and production, themes that lie at the heart of India's defense resurgence. I request Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee, retired, to please present mementos to our moderator and our panelists. Small token of gratitude. A memento to Mr. Venkat Katkuri, Head Airbus Defence and Space, India and South Asia. To Mr. Roderick McLean, Vice President and GM, Air Mobility and Maritime Missions, Lockheed Martin. To Mr. Andalib Shadman, MD, Hensoldt India. Yes, yes. And Amitabh says he doesn't want a memento. All right, so can we please get together for a group photograph? Thank you so much, gentlemen. And now we will carry forward the thought of India's defense resurgence with a conversation that will look at the bigger picture, a fireside chat with General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defense Staff, and he will share his perspectives on India's defense priorities in a changing world. But before that, I would request all those of you seated at the back to please move forward, and so that, you know, this space is filled, because we have a surprise for you. And we want all of you to please, I request the people sitting at the back to please move ahead if there is space. I request all of you to please, yes, just come up in front a little bit. So before I announce this very special guest, can we just quickly play the audio video of our timeline once? And I think the kiosk visit is happening. That is very, very important for us and all our kiosk partners. So once that happens, they will come in. Can we just play the audio video? Not the one we'll play when they come, but yeah.
So in 2016, we decided to start a platform where Indian defense industry, the users in the military and strategic thinkers could come together. Not in a conference in closed doors, but in an open forum where they could deliberate, discuss ways to strengthen India's defense as well as India's voice on the world stage.
Since day one, it was about balance, strategy and execution, the big picture and the finer details.
For me, there was a definite purpose to Bharat Shakti being raised. I had seen the gap that existed between policymakers, the forces, as also the industry. This was one platform which was supposed to bring all of them together.
With every passing year, the size and the scope of the conference increased. Number of industries, number of ideas, but the mission was the same, to raise India's voice in the world and strengthen India's defenses.
People see the conclave on the day it unfolds. What they don't see are the sleepless nights, the chaos, the pressure.
Behind every handshake that we witness,
Ladies and gentlemen, the surprise. I need a pair of eyes there also, you know, it's because I'm kind of going blind, but anyway, it's okay. It'll be worth it, I promise you. Can you see? Can you see? You can see. You be my Sanjay, Mahabharat wala, let me know. Pavan will give me a heads up. Yeah? I think one or two people I have told, so. Everybody knows now. Oh, okay. No surprise. Doesn't matter. Please pretend to be surprised, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Security Advisor to the Government of India, Mr. Ajit Doval. General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff. I request all of you to please be seated. The NSA has a very important meeting and he has to leave very early. So we will wrap up this session soon, and after that the fireside chat will happen, as I mentioned. I request you to first, we'll just take 2 minutes to show you a little audio visual on our work over the past decade, and after which we will request the NSA and the CDS to release the book on the 10 years of Bharat Shakti. "10 years, one mission: to tell India's defense story from every front. From forward bases to factory floors, from policy desks to parade grounds, Bharat Shakti has chronicled the journey of a nation strengthening its shield. Our conversations with service chiefs, strategists and veterans brought clarity to complex questions. From modernization and indigenization to the geopolitics shaping our region. Through expert interviews and ground reports, we examined every ripple across our neighborhood. How shifts in China, Pakistan and the Indo-Pacific echo through India's security calculus. In our On the Shop Floor series, we entered the heart of India's defense industry, where innovation meets resolve and self-reliance becomes reality. Forging Warriors took you inside the academies and training grounds, the places where soldiers are made, tested and transformed into protectors of the nation. Through Women in Defense, we honored trailblazers who shattered ceilings, flying, leading and fighting with equal conviction. We revisited the wars that forged our armed forces' legacy, from the Himalayas to the deserts, keeping alive the lessons and valor of every generation. 10 years of insight, fieldwork and fearless reporting. This is Bharat Shakti, where strategy meets storytelling and every story strengthens India. Thank you. I request Nitin to please escort the Chief of Defence Staff and the National Security Advisor to the stage. I request the National Security Advisor and joined by General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff, to launch a book on 10 years of Bharat Shakti, anchoring self-reliance in defence, 10 years of Bharat Shakti. Bharat Shakti has evolved from a pioneering defence media platform into a community that informs, connects and drives India's quest for self-reliance in defence. It has been our privilege to chronicle that journey every step of the way, bridging the gap between services, industry, policymakers and partners. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is a special commemorative volume to mark this milestone. It's a collection of some of our finest articles and analyses published over the past decade, capturing the spirit, substance and evolution of India's defense narrative. Thank you so much. I request the team, the entire team of Bharat Shakti and Strat News Global to quickly come forward and we'll quickly take a photograph. We started with 3 and this is where we are today. Brigadier Chatterjee, Ravi, Subrat, I can't, is everybody here? Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thank you guys, back to work. And I request Utkarsh, Harsh and of course Neha Gokhale to please come up. Thank you so much. So carrying forward the thought of India's defense resurgence, we will now turn to the conversation, like I said before, to look at the bigger picture, a fireside chat with General Anil Chauhan, who will share his perspective on India's defense priorities in a changing world. Nitin, I hand over the session to you.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. We've been here since 9:30 in the morning. I know that both of us are standing between you and dinner, but I'm sure you will appreciate the fact that we can't have a better person than General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff, to tell us what is the roadmap of India's defence planning going further and the jointness and integration that he spoke about last year, and where has he progressed after that. So, General Chauhan, let me start straight away. There is a talk about a new normal, which the Prime Minister also has said that there is a new normal which will not tolerate terrorist attacks, and many of the old parameters have gone. What do you understand by, or what should all of us understand by new normal? If you can explain that, then we'll go into the discussion.
So I think that a new normal is a post-crisis environment in which new rules of the games are written, and they are primarily written with two aims. One, that crisis should not occur like that, and if it occurs again, then we are better prepared for it.
Thoda closer.
So this is what I understand as far as new normal is concerned, and slowly these rules are accepted by the environment, by the society. So I'll give you a few examples. Say like after COVID, the new norm was to work from home, and that became an acceptable norm. After demonetization, the new norm was digital payments, cashless transactions. We all stopped carrying purses, etc. So that was a new normal. After Galwan incident, probably between us, the Indian Army and the PLA, there was a new normal. The new rules of engagement were kind of written.
Right.
So post Sindoor, of course, the Honorable Prime Minister, like you said, they have laid down new precepts, new rules, like talk and terror will not happen together, trade and terror will not go together, water and blood will not go together. We'll not only look after the proxies of terror, but also the perpetrators or their handlers actually, that will be there, and we will not be deterred by nuclear blackmail.
Sure.
So while this has been, you can say, as a new rules, as a political new rules, but as far as the armed forces are concerned, it should translate into new normal for us also. That would mean something like better operational preparedness 24/7. That I think is very, very essential. We should be better prepared in our air defense, counter-US system, electronic warfare.
Right.
That should be new normal because that's the kind of warfare which we are expecting. We should have our ISR and kinetic operation capability across the length and breadth of Pakistan. That's would be, I think, new normal.
Sure.
And hopefully, while we change, I'm sure that the adversary will also change and accept this new normal.
So the challenge would be to remain 2 or 3 steps ahead of the adversary, I suppose, in the new normal environment.
Yeah, so technologically, we'll have to be ahead. Today, the last time we targeted just maybe static targets. We may have to think of engagement of mobile targets in future.
Right. So that's the. Let me go back to the creation of the post of CDS and Secretary DMA. You wear 3 hats: Permanent Chairman, Chiefs of Staff, Secretary DMA, and Chief of Defence Staff. During Operation Sindoor, excellent synergy was seen between 3 forces, and of course, NSA led the entire effort. He was really the man who sort of coordinated it. But CDS in its mandate doesn't have an operational role. Do you think there is a need to tweak that mandate, or how do you see, say, future conflicts, Sindoor 2.0, let's say, if it happens? How do you function then?
You're right that CDS does not have an operational mandate. But if you look at the 3 hats which the CDS wears and the way he functions, like I'm also Permanent Chairman, Chief of Staff Committee. So any operational decisions which is taken by the 3 services, I'm party to it.
Right.
And it, the whole committee actually goes by my advice because of seniority and other reasons.
Right.
That I think is important. That must be understood. So willy-nilly you get involved. But if it was a single service operation, if the army by itself was carrying out a counterinsurgency operation, then they could well do it independently without CDS getting involved.
Sure.
So that is one. Second thing is, as a CDS, my role is to advise, single point advice to the government of India. So if this advice was being given one-to-one, then it was all right. But most of the time, like in Operation Sindoor, this advice was being given to the political authority completely as part of COSC.
Sure.
So whatever advice I gave, so that had some kind of a legitimacy for the other services to follow.
Right.
So that I think was important. Another thing is, while the 3 services operate in their traditional domains, but there are new domains like space, cyber, cognitive warfare. Now these domains come under headquarter IDS, and these are to be made available to the services in support of their operations.
Sure.
So in that way, some kind of an oversight over that is also there.
So, a lot of people, 3 chiefs have spoken, you've spoken on Operation Sindoor at various places, but I still haven't got hold of, say, one single factor or 2 or 3 factors that actually resulted in India's resounding military victory and of course the kind of confidence-shattering victory that India had against Pakistan. What was the, if you had to list out two factors, let's say, what would they be?
It's difficult actually. You can't list out one single factor or two single factors. There are a number of factors actually which would have contributed to this victory. Right from top, the political level, very clear-cut direction, freedom of action, they were actually essential part of this victory. With the military, there was great amount of coordination, jointness and integration. The work which been going on for past 2 years, that thing I think was responsible. And obviously we had a kind of an capability gap between us and Pakistanis. I'm not talking about numbers, but actual putting strategy, actual capability. So these were essential. But between this political and military, I think the important part was connecting these two together and giving a direction.
Right.
That role, I think, was played by the National Security Advisor. So he had an important role in synergizing all this together.
Sure.
Apart from getting other instruments of national power into this operation.
I think it was all of government approach, as they say classically. It happened because of this. But post the Sindoor, there have been analysis, lots of analysis has been done that this may not be the same circumstances, may not be the same theater of operations like you yourself mentioned. And you had a combined commanders conference in Calcutta recently. What were the Prime Minister's directions in that, if they are, I mean, if you are able to share that, if it's not in the classified domain, or at least what you told the Prime Minister, all three of you or four of you, and what does he expect from the military?
So let me begin by saying that for the first time we had combined commanders conference in the eastern part of India.
Okay.
I think the location itself was a big messaging, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Second thing is the framework of the conference. So this conference was slightly different. Earlier combined commander conferences, the first day would be with the CDS, next day with Honorable RM, and the final day with Prime Minister. We reversed the sequence this time. So we could get Prime Minister's and Raksha Mantri's directions quite clearly, and then we had a whole day to deliberate upon that. So there were a number of, like Prime Minister, I think, he spoke about Jai Hind, the Jai part, the first part. That acronym he said was about jointness, Atmanirbharta and innovation. So it was kind of an endorsement of all the initiatives on jointness and integration which we spoke last time.
Right.
So that was one. And he actually was wanting us to take it forward to the next level, the whole of nation approach, which you were mentioning. So whether it is to be CAPF, whether it is Coast Guard or the Ministry of Port Shipping. So we need to work things out together. So that was one. Endorsement of Atmanirbharta, that's the second initiative, and innovation. In innovation, again, I think the services have to be part of the national technology mission. That was a big takeaway from there. So this is the directions of the Prime Minister, and similar lines Honorable Raksha Mantri spoke. As far as the military is concerned, we had a separate session on a Western Front strategy. That was there. We also had professional discussions on information warfare.
Okay.
We wanted to break it down in 3 different domains of perception management, electronic warfare, and cyber, which truly are emerging as new domains. So these were kind of discussions which took place amongst us. And there were also directions from the Prime Minister that we need to take forward this process of integration further and create joint structures.
So how much has jointness progressed from the last time that 1 year ago that we spoke, and you gave me about 9 parameters or 9 objectives that you had at that point in time. Just give us some status report of that.
So I think last time I told you about 196 odd initiatives which we had identified over 8 odd verticals, that had to be put into place. And almost about 56 of them are already done. And now at least I used to be chasing them myself actually. But now the thing is that it's the ownership which has been taken by the services themselves and with the help of headquarter IDS. So this is being done seamlessly.
So I'll come to the most obvious question right at the end, but future wars seem to be unpredictable. They are technology based, and technology is changing so rapidly that it may not last, certain technology may not be useful maybe a year or 2 later,
or it will have an upgraded technology coming in there. How are the armed forces, who are normally very, I would say, slow moving or deliberate in their induction or absorption of technology, how are they meeting this challenge?
So you're right, actually. When we all joined service, it was geography which probably dictated strategy and tactics.
Right.
Today, it means technology has overtaken geography completely and it's made it irrelevant. So technology is driving tactics, it's driving strategy, it's driving the way we fight battles. So we got to be very progressive in thinking as to where this is all leading to. And means I must also try and tell you in the same breath that predicting the future very accurately is rather difficult. So we need to debate this.
Right.
And I have created various forums for this particular debate. You're aware that we are holding this future warfare course, and
Yes.
this particular course is not open to only services,
Okay.
but it's also open to the academia, industry, MSMEs and startups. So this is one initiative which we have taken. We also intend creating a permanent structure in headquarter IDS regarding this. Ran Samvad was
Yeah, I was going to just say that I was there in Mao, and Ran Samvad, I think, you completely flipped the idea of conferences. And I think for this audience, you need to sort of elaborate a little bit what that idea was.
So previously, there have been seminars, means armed forces have been organizing seminars.
Sure.
But they were really not in the domain of war and war fighting, more on diplomacy, international relations, etc.
International relations and all that kind of thing.
So we have changed the focus of military seminars into warfare and war fighting.
Okay.
And it's not only the theme of the particular seminar, but I think the way we conducted it. So normally you find in seminars being conducted by veterans and other think tanks and all, they were the part of the audience.
This time they were part of the audience. Okay.
It's the practitioners which are telling that how they foresee warfare.
Okay.
And then take ideas from the people who are part of the participants. So that was one great initiative. We actually, it's my desire to scale this particular event up to, means it could be a military's Raisina dialogue or something like that in future.
Okay.
And we expect foreign participation also from next time.
Okay.
And maybe next time you will find more younger people giving out their views and not the older generation.
The innovators and the startups.
Yeah. So younger officers will be part of the panelists, and older people like us will be on the listening side.
But did that result in this book that you, second part of your book called RRR, Ready, Relevant and Resurgent? What does this book contain? I mean, is it some derivation of your lessons learned in Ran Samvad and otherwise so many talks that you have given after becoming CDS to various military establishments? You've gone and explained to people why jointness is required. Is it a gist of that, or you have some theories and technology also included in it?
So let me first say that in both the books there's a big disclaimer.
Okay.
So it says these are the personal views of General Anil Chauhan and not that of the Ministry of Defense.
Right.
So let me put that thing correctly. So let me talk about what it contains, but why it was written by me. That I think the later part is important.
Sure.
So I wanted all these ideas which I had for reform transmission, so actually to be percolated down to mid-level officers so people could read that. It's whenever I address people, it's a limited audience which I address.
Yes.
And most of these talks have been given when in an open kind of a forum. So there's a need to debate these particular issues forward, and they contain a number of issues, mostly about war and war fighting.
Which is the primary job of the military.
Primary job. So if you find most of the articles are related to either military geography or war and war fighting, new domains, traditional domains, new concepts, challenging new ideas, how warfare was in previous times, principles of war. So all these things are there in these books.
So the big elephant in the tent, where is theaterization journey now? At what stage are we? Because there were so many debates after Op Sindoor, although you were already progressing jointness, integration, you said those are the preliminary steps that you have to take. And then, of course, go forward. And ultimate aim is theaterization or joint theater command. Let me put it that way. Where are we in that journey?
So we, start. Let me actually tell you that creation of theatre commands is part of my mandate actually.
Right.
It's given as part of a TOB or business rules. So one part
Terms
says
of business.
yes,
Yeah.
terms of business rules. So I have to progress it to its logical conclusion.
Correct.
Anyone who's a CDS, he's supposed to do it actually.
Right.
So that's been mandated for this appointment. So that I think is important. We started this business the moment I took over as CDS. In fact, General Rawat started it, my predecessor. And we continued with some kind of strategic discussion between the three chiefs and myself for over about 26 days, spread over 2-3 years.
One of them is sitting here.
Sitting here. Here, Chief Marshal Chaudhary, General Manoj Pandey.
That's right.
And Admiral Hari Kumar. And when these people retired, we compiled all those discussions of ours in a kind of a booklet and submitted it to the government. So at that point of time, there were still some issues left in that Op Tiranga. Those discussions continued further. And I would say Air Chief Marshal Chaudhary was even part of that second discussion.
I see.
So he retired
later than the other
3
two.
or 4 months later. So that's where we are. What has happened is post Sindoor, there are some more lessons that we have learned. I need to incorporate that into this model which we have worked out. Say like in the earlier model, we were saying that force generation, force application would be different. And a theatre commander would be responsible for force application and a service chief for only force generation.
Right.
So it gave him only a responsibility of raise, train, sustain kind of a factor. But in this whole Operation Sindoor, we found that the service chiefs also had a major role as part of COC and directly also with the leadership. So we can't deny away this particular role in the Indian context for some more time.
Right.
So we need to rework that thing out, the role of chiefs of the staff committee. That is, I think, one big lesson. Second big lesson is how do we interact with the higher leadership, the higher defense organization and strategic decision making. Now we have a lot of experience. We have experience of Uri, we have experience of Balakot, Sindoor, Galwan, Doklam, COVID. So we need to amalgamate that particular experience, come to an organizational structure which will be for all seasons actually. That would be should be there, and for which we would require not only it's not a COSC decision, guidance of people like NSA, etc. would be required to finalize that HDO structure for war, less than war, because today
it's less than war actually. You can't define war anymore. Yeah.
So we need to work out those structures. So that I think is important.
So finally, let me ask you this. This was the mandate has been clear. The Prime Minister has declared it. He has said this in the Parliament or otherwise also, that theatre commands or joint theatre commands is the way forward. So there's no question of theatre commands not happening. Only their shape, their timing, and perhaps their structure. I mean, shape and structure is the same thing, but structure. It has to be unique to Indian conditions and Indian challenges. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, so that particular part we have already done.
Okay.
So 90% of the work is already done. Is that little bit of things which we have learned from the present ongoing operations. Some debate more between us. Post Sindoor, the biggest problem we are facing is finding time actually.
Because most people want you to talk about Sindoor.
Yeah, the 4 chiefs in October we've not been able to meet. November looks the same.
Right.
So there is not one day when all 4 of us are in Delhi. So that's the biggest challenge.
So today we were lucky. All 4 of you are here and all 4 have been here, including the CDS. So we are grateful for that. And with that, let me end this conversation. As usual, very candid and very insightful for the audience. For us, we are, like you said, like we say, that we are focused on defense and national security. I think this is a wonderful revelation that it's on track and you're working on that. So I think on that note, I'm going to end here. I think it's been a long day, but I think it couldn't have ended on a better note than what this conversation with the CDS has achieved. Thank you very much for your patience and your thoughts here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I request? Okay. Sure, sure. So while we wait for the CDS to come back, in case the NSA is leaving, I would like to just take these few minutes and thank all of you for being part of this milestone edition. I would like to thank all our speakers right from our inaugural session, all our knowledge session, all our moderators, all our keynote speakers, our partners without whom this event would not have been possible. They're right here. We've had several people supporting us and we are so, so grateful. Your presence and participation have made today's conversations truly meaningful. To the Constitution Club of India for the venue, the stage, the food, thank you. I request Nitin Gokhale to please present a memento to the Chief of Defence Staff, General Anil Chauhan. Can I have a round of applause, please? And now I once again thank all of you. Thank you so much. This was a landmark edition and all of you, our partners, our speakers, our moderators, thank you so much. Our delegates, thank you so much. Our kiosk partners, Constitution Club of India, once again, to the live streaming team, thank you so much. And now I request all of you to join us for cocktails and dinner, which I'm sure is well deserved, as we continue our conversations in a more relaxed setting. Thank you. The cocktail and dinner is outside in the lawn area. Thank you.